Cool, so this is the NWC Show, episode 53, and if you would like to introduce yourself.
My name's Ewan O'Raw. I'm a 6'4" man, a Scottish professional wrestling, 200 pounds, industrial, with a little bit of that added, but it's a few.
Man, so before we get into the way we start the podcast, that's one of the reasons I reached out to you, was how fun your kind of... I seen you on Facebook, somebody shared your Facebook promo for, Pro 2 or something like that, and I was like, oh, this is like a fun kind of promo put together. I was like, I need to get this guy on the podcast and talk about it, because it's unusual to see that kind of, like, somebody not taking themselves that serious in wrestling to this day. It's normally, obviously, everybody takes themselves mega serious and wants to be like the next serious wrestler, if that makes sense. But it's cool to see somebody kind of just chilling, relaxing, and having fun with it, which wrestling's meant to be. What kind of made you come up with that character? What was the thing that made you go, you know what, I'm going to just be this ginger guy that does this?
I don't know, like, I'm just like the TV, like, TV Xavier, like, he's a very cameraman, and he's talking about it in, like, the racing chat photo, like, he was saying, like, he's just kind of, he's turned up to 10, and that's the generic answer, but kind of just, it's just kind of me, like, enjoying wrestling, just done it, and just, you know, like, a bath and just, like, having a laugh there, and, like, I think when I say when I thought that kind of take myself so serious and try just to be like so there, and you know everybody is, you know what I mean? Like, you need to be able to take yourself like more serious, so like sometimes that's the good, and like no many can do it. I think like that's one of those kind of acts.
Definitely, man. I think people forget you don't need to take yourself so serious all the time. When I was wrestling as well, I always try to have fun with it. Didn't want to be like the character that was like pure serious, like a robot, stiff and stuff like that. I just wanted to go out there and have fun. You know, I'm working in the ring with a pair of pants on. It's not really like, you can't take myself too serious. But brings us to the first question that we always ask. It's always a question that anybody asks you. I know you've probably answered this like 1,000 times. What got you into wrestling? What was that moment you were like, these guys in that ring with barely any clothes on, that's what I want to do?
Like, you know, like, I always kind of liked it. Like, I was always a fan for about probably 2005 times. That's when I was like a wee guy, so that's when I got into wrestling as you do. So, but even in like years I got back, like going into high school and stuff like that, I still like kind of get interest in it, and like still even like though I didn't want to admit it and didn't want to go, oh, you know, because it becomes that bit in high school, it's a bit, you know, like kind of flag you for liking it, but you go up and acceptance. I mean, but even at those times when I didn't watch it, I still wanted to school. And then, like, after I left high school and stuff, I just kind of always wanted to do it, man. Like, it was always in the back of my head. And then I'd put my driving license, and I was a school in April, like, 15-minute away from the traffic line of CSI. And I but I'd done other training and stuff like that, like, judo and stuff, so I was like, I can do that. Like, wanted to do it for years, so but when I've done it,
Yeah, man, I remember I started training when I was young, so I was like 11, 12-ish. So I was in high school when I was wrestling on the weekends, and I just got the piss took out of me all the time because people would come and see me, or they'd be like, you're going to make money with Speedos on. And I was like, the key point is I'm going to make money. You're just like sitting around doing nothing. But it was fun. You know what it's like going to a Scottish kind of high school, secondary school. It's just pretty much, if you don't have a thick skin, you won't make it through those 4-6 years at school.
Sorry, that's your contact. You've got to decide how fit in high school and just make it through. But I once I was like, won't get the best to it there, so that's it.
I wouldn't change it. It was really fun, but it was terrible when you're on the receiving end of the whole year going, oh, you wear Speedos for fucking, like, people. I remember one time they came in, everybody had a pair of Speedos on their school clothes, and I was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. The teacher was taking part in it and everything.
Yeah, man, I couldn't handle that stuff, man. I wanted to go back.
I was alright, man. I I'm just one of those. I don't really care. Like I keep saying to everybody who's on this show as well. Like, if you're seeing me in the audience, you might be a bad guy. Just pick me out. I don't care. Do what you want. Hit me with something. I'll sell it. Let me go home. But what kind of how long have you been wrestling? How long have you been kind of out there doing it?
Well, I started when I was just 19. I think that was in 2017. It was the week after. It was in April. I don't know the exact date. It was like the week after WrestleMania, the one where like the Hardy Boys returned. Like the last time there, and won like the ladder match. And the week after that Mania, I can't really know what number. I think it was 36, 35 maybe. I don't know. In that way, there's no even close to it.
I don't even know, man. They all just blend together now, don't they?
37, and like I was trying to like 31. I'm not gonna lie, too many. But I like that WrestleMania. I was 19-year-old. Then I went to the CBW school at the time in Ayrton to train with CJ Rhodes. And yeah, I've been training there for like 3 years, just over there, 3 years. And then like recently, like with kind of stuff coming back, no contact for a training down at the Specs, and I was doing Iron Texas for the first time to doing that as well. So I'm just trying to like, train about now and just get out there as much as possible there.
Definitely, man. How did you find COVID? Like taking that and still taking that huge chunk of like your kind of ability to like travel around and stuff. Have you just found it like it's gave you better time to work in your character, or how did you find it?
At the start of lockdown, man, like I kind of like just was almost like everything, if I'm being honest, like because I had a lot of big stuff coming up, but I was also like at the stage of wrestling where I was just like, because I was going through like hard every day, like just for the kind of just everything, like I was non-stop at the shows. Like if I wasn't on shows, I was playing out like every show I played, I was just there all the time pretty much. I kind of like bumped myself out a little bit in that aspect. Yeah, I was just like, I maybe needed just a couple of weeks just to kind of, chill out. But then lockdown happened, and a couple of weeks turned into like a couple of months, you know what I mean? Just doing anything. And yeah, like, it only took me to about like, the first time going back down to like, the States. Like, they have like, a partnership with like, Pro Wrestling Scotland, which is things like that. So like, they kind of opened the ring up and all that. So, and it was like the first session I went back, and it was like just basic, like stunting and doing your goals and all that. And I was like doing up that after the warm up, but I was just kind of totally like I've never really been like, even though the class is a bigger guy, like I've never been like unfit. I've always done like judo or rugby or some shit. So when like wrestling, I was always able to keep up with like guys in training, like the guys like guys black when I've had matches I haven't used, like I could go with the guys in training. Like coming back for that first time, I was stuck. Like I was done. Like I've never been that unfit in my life, and like since that is never going to be me again. Like I'm coming back, and I'm noticing I'm not like that. Oh man.
The first part of lockdown, man, the first kind of stage I was in with my kids, it was just this channel was still like new, so I only started it because of coronavirus. But we were playing What's the Time, Mr. Wolf. I caught my little boy, so he was out, but my my little girl was still playing, and she was ready to catch me, but I jumped over the couch and I tore my calf muscle, like literally ruined my calf muscle, and I was off. Like I couldn't exercise for the first whole part of the lockdown, the first one, however many we've had now, but the first one I just kind of had to sit on the couch and stuff, and then I've kind of got myself back to a good level of fitness, and I'm probably fitter than I've ever been just now. But it was a poor journey because I hate sitting around doing nothing when I'm sitting. Like I'm always on the go, so when I was sitting around, we couldn't go out, couldn't go to the shops, couldn't go to places, and it's like, what can we do? Can I go for a run? But then my calf muscle was torn. It was just, I could only imagine. Like obviously, if you've been working, you've got stuff coming up, you're obviously in that wrestling mindset. At the weekend, you're ready to go, and then it's just like nothing, just sitting. Like this is what normal people do at the weekend.
You just kind of turned into like sitting about doubting, just no really doing much else. Eating, especially when I was a rest, but since Shinton that I've been back home, man, I've just been like training hard or whatever. Like, I'm making it like my goal to just come back and smash it and just do the thing, man. Like, I motivated again there. Like, at the start of lockdown as well, like my hip was starting to go. I had to go into physio and get like, my pelvis straightened and that. I didn't realise at the time, but it was like once everything stopped. I think that's why I kind of get like demotivated a bit as well. So I was just like, injured and sitting about, and then get a new gyms out of anyway. So yeah, motivated. But I think that kind of first session back was an eye-opener, man. Just like,
Definitely. I think everybody went through a period of like just being pure like a bus sponge during COVID, because at some points it just got to you because you're just sitting pure. Like what do I do now? Like when is this ever going to end? I know we're coming to the end date just now. Are you excited to be getting back in front of fans, going back on the road, just being in the ring and getting those people, getting that feeling there, the energy again?
I am buzzing, man. Like, it's been so long. Like, I think it was like February 2020. Like, was my last show. I got like February 2020, yeah, just before lockdown. But then in like July 2021, so it's been like over a year and a half doing this. So it's like, it's been like I've become like a bigger fan of wrestling as well. Over lockdown, I've watched so much wrestling, so it's like just all done. Like, I miss their time. Like, just watch wrestling, so it's just like them to get back out there, man. I just want to do it and really get positive for it.
There's been so many people that's said that as well. They've had so much time to catch up in wrestling, like just become a fan of it again, because obviously you've got your normal job, you've got your wrestling at the weekends and spending time with your friends, your family, your missus, whatever you've got to do. Then it's just like you don't have time to sit down and watch a wrestling match. It's like you try to catch it on the go, whatever. And especially if you're out there doing it, the last thing you want to do is come home, sit down, and put on a wrestling match, and you're like, when I was working, I used to watch it all the time because I was only had school, and then I was training, and then it would be wrestling at the weekend, and that's all I used to do. But I'd watch it all the time. But when I got a bit older, started having to like get a bird and stuff like that. The last thing you want to do was come in and put in a wrestling match, especially if you're in your room with a lassie, and you're like, oh, I'm not putting on wrestling. That's a bit embarrassing. Like, even though you're doing it, you're like, I'm not going to put that on. It's no very like a romantic setting, is it? So like, I'm trying to watch Undertaker beat like Shawn Michaels here. Can you leave me alone?
I think it's just like that, being able to just become a fan again, honestly, like just take that time out and just appreciate it and just get back into it. Like, it's good.
Definitely. There's been a ton of guys that I've had on the show that, from like America and stuff, that are like, oh, I've not watched wrestling in years since I've been doing it, and then like this lockdown stuff's gave me like a time to sit down and watch it. And guys that I've had from like ICW that have been obviously still doing the kind of weekly shows, they've been obviously lucky learning how to work the TV and stuff like that. But it's the kind of guys that don't have that opportunity that are either becoming better fans of wrestling and learning it more, or they're kind of falling away from it because they're not there every week at the gym and stuff like that. Have you know? If you sorry.
I reckon I thought you were going to ask this, like,
No, I was not. I was going to ask. I was just going to say, where do you think you're going to be in 10 years? Where would you say? Obviously, I'm not asking you to book your next 10 years of your life, but where would you like to be? Would you like to be up in WWE, or would you see yourself doing more fun, like, I don't know, ROH, MLW, some shows like that in America? Or are you happy just going around the scene here in Scotland, UK, and stuff like that?
Honestly, like, I would like to like go anywhere that's going to take me to the exercise time, anywhere that's going to take me to the time to especially like I'm happy, you know what I mean, in the house, but like I don't know, like I'm not really like I just love wrestling, like WWE would be great. Obviously, I grew up watching WWE, but then on the flip side, it's like AEW that it's like great as well, and it's like wrestling. But like that's obviously like that's the dream, you know what I mean? Like that's one of the things, like, I'll never know if I'm going to get there. Like, that's a lot of years of work I've still to put in, man, and hopefully one day that would be what I say. But now, I'm just trying to kind of wrestle as much as possible, like, and get about as much as possible, as many different companies. Like, I'm not full-time wrestler yet, like, that is the kind of dream. I just got to try and wrestle, like, see everywhere, like, that's the best way I can put it, like, if, I was listening to that Susie Boy seminar again there, I'm just getting a lot of people's success in my head, and he's like the top guy in Scotland pretty much. He was just pretty much saying it like, I'm not even in like ICW yet, but like, because I'm not there yet, I want to be there yet, but like, it doesn't mean I can't be here and there and this place and that place, and that's the goal, just like try and get to as many wrestling companies as possible, and then hopefully someone in a higher up company sees me and sees something right and brings them if I can.
Definitely, man. I remember when I was there, I was like, my goal is to go wrestle this country, and that's all I used to work like. So sometimes I'd be like put in the mood to wrestle in France, so then I would like phone wrestling companies, send them like emails and stuff for like my videos on it, tapes, whatever, and they'd be like, no, I know the night, and I'll just keep phoning them till they would say like, we'll give you a chance, and I'd be like, right, cool, I'll be there. Like, when do you need me? I'll be right there. I used to just do that like all the time. I had nothing else to do, but I was literally school, and that's all I'd done. So I didn't have a life at that point. Obviously, it was just like I was still a kid, and I'm getting through around the wrestling ring, which is weird to say now, but back then it was more normal than you would see now. But kind of coming on to today's kind of wrestling product, question we always need to ask is, what's something that you love about today's wrestling product? What's something that you're like, you know what, I really like this about? Is it like the community? How much wrestling there is? What's something that you love about it?
I just want like kind of variety of it. It's kind of something for everybody. I reckon. Like if you're not enjoying WWE at the minute, like I think that like WWE are doing at the moment, like it's not the best it's ever been, but there's good stuff on. Like SmackDown, I don't watch every weekly show. I watch mostly just the pay-per-views. NXT UK is very good at the moment. I feel like if you're not into that stuff, you've got like AEW, New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact, are doing good shows. Like then even on the flip side, like you've got like the British stuff, like I just say the game at NXT UK, so I'm more of a fan of old school like kind of shit, and like want to see that like kind of British style stuff, and then even on the network, you've got ICW, Progress, all those companies, like even if you don't like this like higher up stuff, like you like kind of stuff, I don't know. I think it's cool that way, wrestling, and then I don't know. I just hate all the folks who kind of complain. That's the thing I hate about the product. Like folks who kind of just like take it too serious and stuff and doing stuff every 2 minutes. More of it is that if you don't like it, don't watch it. Is that so? Like, I don't know.
That was what the next question was going to be. What's something that you don't like about it? So is it just like people moaning about it and stuff like that that you kind of...
I don't know. I think folks take it far too serious for what it is. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just like wrestling. You get a buy. I used to be one of the folks who selling for it to be fair, but it's that way. You're at a point, you're like, why even like get a life? I don't know.
But I review on the channel. I review shows out with the podcast. So like I'll do like Raw, NXT, AEW, Impact Wrestling, SmackDown, and like Raw, I just tear apart because sometimes it's terrible, other times. But I'm looking at it as like a review point of view. Like so, I'm reviewing this show, but then as a fan, like I'm still with Raw. I would say partially enjoying it. Even as a fan, it's sometimes hard to watch. But like the other shows, when I review it, it's just different than when I'm watching it as a fan because I'm using it from like a business perspective, and then as a fan, I'm just sitting there enjoying wrestling. Like it's two different things. I can be like, oh, I hate this as a reviewer, but as a somebody watching it, I can be like, oh, it was all right. It's not that bad.
I think you sometimes when you're like focus on it, yeah, I get that one. But that's the fair I couldn't do it. I was just
But
like, I don't know, like, watch the highlights and that, but can never fit through the regular. It's just so much like colour and adverts and yeah, I get that attention.
Oh, definitely, man. I think as though it's just there's so much wrestling, and there's so much is a good thing, but then there's so much is a bad thing because it's oversaturated. There's too much to watch. Like there's even for me to do the channel. The reason I started this is so I could start to watch wrestling weekly again because it was just like I was watching like old NWA stuff, then like into WCW and staying like that 90s, early 2000s. Then I'd maybe pick a new one up here and there. I was like, you know what, I need to start watching it more like up to date stuff. So that's why I made the channel. But even it's just there's so much to watch, especially if you add in like NXT UK and you've got like ICW, like WXW, Progress, and it's just all these guys, and then you've got the YouTube independents and then New Japan. Yeah, by the end of the day, all you've got is just wrestling every day, and you're just going to burn yourself out in it.
You know, like, even if you don't like, you kind of know plenty of stuff. Even if you don't like current day wrestling, like you've got the network, like so like you can everything on it. Like even if you're like an old granny, you know what I mean, you're sorted. Like if you're like fucking other old school shit, like there's like stampede wrestling, and like, oh, you know what I mean? Like everybody's happy. Even though like the mad bets and stuff, like that stuff. You know what I mean? Everything's fine.
Definitely, man. Especially, I think something that, for me, I would always say a problem with wrestling just now is like everything, not just wrestling, everything's oversaturated because you don't need to watch new stuff. If you like, for wrestling in particular, if you like Hulk Hogan or Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels, and you don't like the new stuff, you can go watch them. Plus, if you really like that style, you can watch Kurt Angle in his prime, and you don't need to watch the new stuff because you can go see the people in their prime. And that's something that I always say hurts wrestling because when we were growing up, you didn't have the network, you had to hope HMV had the DVDs.
I guess so, man. I kind of I remember they basically gone into see and all that. But I find all the games, all the good guys like that good see on the DVD, so that back in the day. Good stuff. And then it's just all online in it. So you get it anywhere.
Man, you're younger than me. I remember VHSs. I remember not getting them in the UK. So I turned 30 this year. I remember I got in there like 98, 99, and I got really into wrestling. I remember having to go to the Forge Market. I don't know if you know where the Forge Market is. And you go in there and it was like a wee stall that sold like these these wrestling videos, but you had to ask and he would like bring them up and it was like WCW, WWF obviously at the time. And I think I got 3 of them and then the guy shut down because it was like a tape person. I like, had the dodgy stuff like everybody at that time in Glasgow did, but I it's looking at it today compared to then. Like even what 2017, 2015, you're like, or no, the network was around then, what 2008, whatever. You know what I mean? Back in the day, you were like, you're like, how can anybody have time to watch all this? Like it's in like even if you sit down and go, I'm going to do like watch WCW. It's like what you going to watch because it's everything's there.
I know, definitely, man. Like, that's spoiled behind these days, fans. Like, I used to like the VHS things back in the day, you listen to the podcast, and it's like, all the kind of folks saying how like, they had to tape collect and all of that. But it's how you mental these days. Like, to me, like, I feel like I listen to that and I just feel like, and that's pretty much it. Like, how quick, and like, just going through all that, now that it's like, geez, on my own, reality plays, and I don't know, like, yeah, plays.
It's great. Like if I was a kid now, like yeah, I would never leave the house. Like the amount of wrestling I used to watch when I was younger, like even DVDs and stuff like that, they would just get ruined because I would leave them on all the time. And then like I would the other day I was telling somebody about this. And my mum didn't like me watching wrestling. She didn't know I'd done wrestling, so she thought I was working at a news agent's, and I used to go wrestle and come back with like I cut my head or like a black eye or like I've hurt myself some way. And then I was just like, I was just a box fail. But she didn't like wrestling, so she was like knowing the TV, big TV back then, because obviously you had the one big TV in the house, and then that was it. But I had a portable DVD player, and I had to watch it on that. But if you watched it for like smaller than your phone screen, I don't know if you've ever seen these, because I sound like an old man when I start talking about this kind of stuff. But they're like totes, and the screen on it's like so small. But for some reason, the one that I had would just like the screws at the bottom of it, if you had it on for longer than about 3 hours, the screws would just give you a shock. And so I would have to like balance it on like my jammies and stuff, try to like watch this wee mini screen. You had to like put it a certain way for it to work. But aye. So when people sit and complain that they've not got time to watch wrestling, like kids, know when you're an adult, I'm like, stop lying. Because I used to have to watch Shawn Michaels against Razor Ramon jumping off the ladder on like this wee mini like 4-inch screen that was amazing. But aye, just for kids watching this, stop complaining.
Even if people advertise on it, like they'll never even post it all the three matches on YouTube, like three. Like, even if it was away, if that was a bit when I was away, like I don't know, like there's stuff on there that like I can even watch. You know what I mean?
Definitely, man. Especially people forget like how like YouTube's still a new thing. Like when I was younger, YouTube was literally only like music videos, nothing else. And then you might get like a wee wrestling show, like a match somebody's recorded on like a flip phone put up. You can't see it, all grainy, try to make out what's happening. But aye, that's me just showing my age again. These podcasts have just turned into me being old, like VHSs and talking about all this stuff, which is make me feel terrible for being an old man. But aye, anyway. Man, so obviously, kind of today's wrestling stuff, there's so much it. You're kind of still in that independent scene coming up through the ranks within the UK kind of side. How do you feel UK wrestling is coping with obviously COVID? I know they obviously had the speak out movement and stuff. We don't need to talk about that. But how do you think for me, UK wrestling obviously it was hit its peak in like the 70s, 80s when it had like the variety shows, the ITV, then it died off a bit, came back a wee bit, died off a bit, came back a wee bit, and then obviously what happened last year and stuff has made it die off a wee bit. How do you think it's going to come back in the future? Do you think it'll be stronger, or do you think it's going to take a couple of years to bounce back?
I mean, it's hard to say. So like, hard to say just like COVID and stuff like that. Like how like fans have been like want to spend their money straight away. I'd like to hype like with the amount of talent and kind of promotions and different companies out there, and like kind of wrestling being like more relevant ever right now. Like there's so much here as like, just kind of touched on. So I'd like to think like it is going to be really good again, and it is going to get back to that kind of booming point. Where they're kind of at. Like I wouldn't even say a couple of years before lockdown, because like in the time I've been training, like I've been to so many like sold out shows for so many different promotions, and like even shows coming back and seeing us selling out. So I don't know, like with the amount of guys I've seen kind of coming to training and stuff like that, I think they're going to make it kind of as good as ever, man. Like I don't want to say it'll be better than ever, but I think they could be like just the amount of kind of talent all that's coming through, and guys like the people haven't even seen really enough of yet. Like when it comes to there's a lot out there, man.
Definitely, man. There's like a ton of talent in UK wrestling, but for me, it would be Scottish wrestling's just got, and it's pretty much everybody you look anywhere is just insane. Like people like Ian Skinner, Thatcher Wright, Danny Edwards. I've got my YouTube list set up here. It looks like I was reading a list there, but it's just like the recording thing set up. I was reading all the guys I've been on, but pretty much people that I've had on this have, including yourself, are paving the way to make Scottish wrestling really, really good. And it's cool to see. It's cool to see that we can take pride in our country's wrestling style instead of from just being like that wee random place that's got like nothing in it for anybody to go to.
I feel like we've got like, in my opinion, I think like the Scottish wrestling team is one of the best in the whole world, but not even the UK. It's just the Scottish wrestling team, like with the amount of like promotions and like just world class wrestlers, like we are just lucky. Like I think there's also like WWE and stuff like that as well. But like it's all Scottish like guys, like lucky as a country, man. And when it comes to wrestling.
Definitely, man. When I was growing up, it was only the SWA. I don't know if you remember them, but it was just like that was it. That was like the only promotion in Scotland, and ICW was like still doing like Mary Hill when it has like
Aye.
6 people coming to it. Do you know what I mean? They were like just starting, but like SWA was like the only promotion. They would go to like Bells Hill, then they would do like a 10-week rotation, come back there, and it was like if you've only on that show, you weren't really anybody. It obviously had smaller like caravan park shows and stuff like that, but you want to be on the main show where people are going to go watch it, and it was just impossible to get booked. But it's so cool to see now, like you guys can all make a name for yourself. There's what 12, more than 12 wrestling shows that have got a good fan following, which is it's great to see, especially coming from when I was there. It was so competitive to get into one show. I think you guys have got all this space. A wee bit jealous, but it's cool to see.
No, I like what like that's how like there's so much opportunities out there like you just kind of want it and really man and man that's opinion on it like there's one place I like in Scotland that's like not like that's never gonna get it so it's like that's yeah rest for them, you know what I mean? Like you can do it if you want to, you know what I mean?
Definitely, and I think the wrestling community in the UK with guys like Shady and Actress like leading the way as well with like Target Wrestling and stuff like that, just helping people, just genuinely just want to help people, like review your matches, talk to you, help you get stuff done. He's been on this podcast and he like he shares my stuff all the time, and he's just got an insane amount of work and he helps people, like just genuinely wants to help people in wrestling and make wrestling better, which is cool to see. And I think everybody's just at the same point when it's like, let's just make UK wrestling good again instead of from like obviously where it was, because we have experience when there was nothing. Like when I was younger, you get the posters in the town and be like Kane versus Undertaker, but it's like the fake Kane and the fake Undertaker, like the just two random guys that just came out the pub dressed as Kane and Undertaker.
Aye, man. I think the first year I went to was the state was meant to be up here and that, but it was in Russia, and like he ended up selling out to like how kind of like personal stuff, and then it was like it turned out to be like a fake Undertaker was the replacement, and like yeah. I loved it as a kid. Looking back, you're like, oh my god, like how much like Scotland came on in wrestling, like from then, and like me being like 5 years old, like 23, it was done well.
I definitely remember, like when I started training, it was an industrial estate in Linwood. I don't know if you know where Linwood is, but there's nothing there. There's like flats and an industrial estate. For anybody that lives in Linwood, there's nothing there. Tell me if there's something there. But like, I used to go there on a Sunday myself. At like, I was 11-year-old, get the bus there for like. It started at 8 in the morning till 5, and my bus used to leave at like 6:30 or something like that. So I used to have to get there early, and then it was like an hour bus journey. So we would get there, and it would be just like a ring if SWA wasn't using the ring, and the wee shutter thing left opened. There was like a toilet that was never working, no changing space, nothing. And you just kind of trained in the mat, and then if you were good enough, you could go in the ring, maybe put in a match, and people will watch you and critique you sitting there. But there's only like 10 people. You're in like the roofs, like you can. I was what, 11-year-old and I could put my hand up and touch the roof. I mean, like the top of the ropes when they're that far off it, so you're running like this, which is then you look now, you've got like ICW in the city centre of Glasgow, huge training equipment. And you're like, fuck, I got pure shafted.
I just feel like there's got like so many like good places and stuff. I should best islands, Iron Gods, like I was in that gym today for the first time, and it's crazy. It's just absolutely wrestling gym. It's like the coolest thing. Even like the specs I've been down there, and it's like that's also got like a crazy big wrestling unit. It's like a gym inside. You've got like the office. It's just like there's so many cool places to train. Like even like when I started, it was just kind of on mats as well. Like the first 2 years I've done wrestling, but now kind of going about, it's like a lot of good stuff out there, man.
I think it's just so weird, like how far it's came on in like such like a short period of time. Like it's not that long if you think, well, 20 years is pretty, like 19, 18 years, that's pretty long, but it's still short in the term of wrestling, and things have changed so much, and there's so many people that want to give back. There's so many like I don't know, it just feels quite positive. Like the wrestling community here in Scotland just feels like a very positive place to be at the minute. Like obviously there's some people, as always with wrestling, it's people that are going to have drama and stuff like that. Like I've had some stuff with this podcast as well, but it's just as part of wrestling. It's what happens, but it's quite mostly positive, like 95% positive, still 5% that wee bit annoying people, but we can deal with them. There's less than normal. So heading to the fun part of the podcast, man, when we can chat wrestling. And so 3 questions. I've sent you 2. You don't need to stick to them, like I says. But the last one I ask everybody, I've not sent you that here because I like keeping that a secret to watch people hum and haw. But the first one is, who's your favourite wrestler of all time? Now, you don't need to pick one. You can pick 2, 3, 5, whatever. Nobody ever just picks one, but it's up to yourself if you want to.
I've got a good few, man. Like the first one, I would say, like, it's just been like the full way through. Since like really, I started watching back in high school, and that the nice, like just what a guy, man. Like I've watched like that WWE documentary, the 24 one, like the top Villa month. Because I watched that for the second time now, and like, he's just such a like perfect thing. Like he's just done it all. Made it so they could do it. It was like, fuck you, he's done it. Like perfect, and like he's just like the best. You know what I mean? Like, I man, like just inspiring kind of guy, but also like one of the best teams of all time. And then like I love one of my other favourite guys. Watching kind of growing up, big Tyson Kidd. Like I always just thought he was incredible. Like he's so underrated. Like just brilliant. And then kind of these days, I'm really enjoying like a lot of the kind of younger guys in AEW and stuff like that. And so many kind of good guys. And STR are just the fucking best at the moment. Like at everything they do. Like that Harvard match with Jungle Boy and that like, random episode of AEW was the best match all year. I don't say it NBC, it was the best match all year. It was phenomenal. If you've not seen it, try to find it. It's fucking brilliant. I'd say SCR up there as well. Tyson Kidd, the Miz, Kevin Owens. I'd say they're the kind of guys I'm into.
You're the first guy to mention The Miz, man. That's 53 episodes. You're the first person to say The Miz. I like the guy. I think he's cool. Though the zombie thing that just happened, that was awkward. But the other stuff was cool. My missus loves watching The Miz and Mrs. or whatever the thing's called. My kids like watching them as well. He's a family. He's there for the whole package. And you can enjoy his wrestling stuff. My fiance likes watching the reality shit that he does, and my kids like watching him just because he looks cool and stuff like that. So he's there for the family, does what he has to do, and he's a good worker. So you're the first person to mention him, which is cool, man. A lot of people just totally bypass him or full scale hate him. Like he gets a lot of hate.
I don't know. I think it can be anything. You can put him in any role. It can be like a great example. Like this year, where like it went to being WWE champion like 3 weeks before Mania, to then getting squashed by Bobby Lashley, to being in a match with Bad Bunny and getting beat, but he still made it good. You know what I mean? He still made it good and entertaining and fucking go on with it and just had a good time. You know what I mean? They spoke with the like. I was a WWE champion and fucking getting beat ass somebody who's not even a wrestler and no wanting to do it. But you get a guy like now who's just happy to be there, you know what I mean? And like as a kind of like up and comer like that, the folk you kind of want to be like, in my opinion.
Definitely, man. I think Miz has just found his groove, didn't he? He's just found where he is. He's happy where he is. He's getting paid good money to be where he is. So why would you? If I was getting paid the same amount as him, I wouldn't be sitting poor. Oh, I wish I was getting like this position. I'd be like, no, do what you want with me. If you want to put me in a bunny suit, put me in a zombie match. If you want me to be a zombie, I don't care. Just you pay me what you need to pay me.
So kind of going no, but he's just like he's done everything. Like no different calls, like enemy. I think in my opinion, like even wrestling wise, like some of the matches he said like the ones against like Seth Rollins and the triple threats, so like Kevin Balor and Rollins. some of these matches against like Cena, the later ones and stuff like that. Even like the mixed tag at Mania, like all that shit was like, brilliant. Like I know your Mark might not love it, but like, he is just like that kind of entertainment family wrestling, like kind of products and that. Like class, like kind of really go around, can you?
Totally agree, man. I don't think there's anybody that can do it better than The Miz for that family stuff at the minute. I wouldn't say he's the best, but I get why he's like people like him, and then also get why people don't like him. For me, he's alright. He's there. Like I say, I don't mind watching his matches. I think he's obviously a good in-ring worker. The comedy stuff sometimes a wee bit weird. The zombie thing put a bad taste in my mouth, but like my kids like the older stuff of him when he was going up against Cena and stuff like that as well. The missus likes the whatever they're called, the mad telly shows, the reality shows, that's what they're called. So you just kind of, he does his show, but he does it well. So when people moan about him, plus he's a heel, he's a guy that can get you to hate him because he's so easy to hate, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I guess like he's just bad enough.
And the second question is, man, what's your favourite event of all time? So what's an event that you would sit down and be like, show somebody this? It can be one that you've been like, show, you plug yourself, whatever you want, or one that you like to sit down and be like, oh, let's watch this. Obviously, no, obviously we're established. No, if you've got like your Mrs. Runa or whatever you've got, Runa, no if they're there. But which one you'd be like, you need to watch this?
I think you said this question. I was thinking about it. Like, it's a hard question to answer because for me personally, when I sit down and watch wrestling, I might not sit and watch the whole event. I'll just sit and watch the odd match here and here. Like one that always sticks out in my mind. I watched it kind of fairly recently. Again, it's like the Survivor Series. Is it like the End Games one? It's the one the tournament for the WWE title, like Attitude Era time. And it's just the story, the full way through. Like how Rock's a good guy and he's overcoming everything that's thrown in front of him. And like fucking Mankind, just like kind of meant to be the corporate guy, but it turns it all along with fucking he was just the setup for the Rock to be like such a good story. And like when you watch that pay per view start to finish, it's just like, satisfying to watch. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say like that's the greatest event of all time. Like there's so many good ones, but I feel like the storytelling wise that could be one of the best ones. And it's just so good for the Rock. Like, this is one of those kind of moments. You know what I mean?
I definitely, man, it's whatever you enjoy. Like for me, one of my favourite ones to watch is King of the Ring '99. I remember it as a kid. I was one of the first VHS tapes I got, and it's not a great pay per view. It's literally probably one of the worst pay per views in '99. But I just love it. It's just like sentimental for me. But that one I remember, as like watching it when I was older. That was before when I was watching wrestling, and then The Rock obviously coming out as a bad guy was just. It's just brilliant when you watch it the whole way through because a pure plug-in that this guy's a good guy, he's a good guy, and he turns and you're like, what? How did this happen? It just gets the first time you see it, you're like, what the heck? You know what's going to happen, but you still pop a wee bit.
It's still one of the moments like that's just easy distance, but it's just I feel like you're so well done. Like the whole night, like it's just built into it. So good.
Definitely, man. I think it's such a weird time in wrestling as well, like just now, because it's something that you can go back and watch that, but then like the new product, it's obviously no as edgy as what it was back then. The writing might not be as fun because there's when anything goes corporate or they get so many people, you've got a writer team of 100 people. It's not going to be as good as two guys writing it over like in the bar, just like writing it down. You know what? This will work. Hopefully it works. Might not, but let's just see how it goes. But you've got like 100 people with managers and stuff like that. Stuff can get lost. That's probably the problem with WWE just now. But I think it's weird time in wrestling because we can go back and watch that and see how good it was back then, and then you look today, the talent's amazing. Like the wrestling skill is just insane, but the storytelling just is missing. And you're like, if we can see this, surely WWE can be like, oh, this is what's missing here.
I feel like the thing with WWE, like, I feel weekly shows might feel a bit like that, but every like I don't really watch like the weekly shows every week. I watch the highlights of SmackDown and Raw, but like every time I kind of watch the pay-per-views, I do feel like it's kind of tied together on the most part. Like in a few, I've been like, maybe not the best, but even over like kind of lockdown and stuff like that, like WWE and AEW kind of like alright with the pay-per-view considering the kind of circumstances and stuff like that. Like, it's not been the worst time in wrestling. Like, I've watched wrestling for a good while, and I remember a lot of worse times where I'm like, oh, this is it. Do you know what I mean? I've kind of enjoyed it over this time, so, you know, you good.
Definitely, man. I don't think it's been the worst time in wrestling at all. Like you said, they round it up at the pay-per-views nicely. I think it's just see that weekly, like the weekly stuff where when I'm reviewing it or when I'm watching it, like my kids, whatever, they don't really, it doesn't really make sense. But then like when you get to the pay-per-view, they kind of like, oh, this is what we meant. Like the wee package, it's like they put the video package up and like, this is what we were meant to tell you then. Hopefully it works. But that's my gripe. But wrestling has been worse. Like 2012, 11, 12, 13. It was pretty hard to watch. People forget that as well. But final question, man, is the one I love asking. So I'll tell you my answer after I've told you the question, and then you can give you a wee bit of time to think. I love asking this because people hum and haw at it. They don't know what the answer is. They call me names, so it's fun. But the question is, if you could replace yourself or add yourself to any match in history, what would it be? For me, I would replace Owen Hart against Bret Hart in the blue steel cage at SummerSlam '94 because I think that's the best steel cage match ever. If you've not seen it, you should go check it out. But only if I was as good as Owen Hart, because if it was me myself, I would balls it up. What would your one be?
That's what I was good. As you said, like, I would like to put myself in this, like, fucking all-time classic match, and then do me, and just said it as good as an all-time classic before. Right, you know what I mean? Like, so, I don't know, man. One thing into mind by just speaking of this, I was just thinking, like, usually, man, like, Triple H, Pedigree, Daniel Bryan, Christina, and fucking Brian, Randy Orton walks out and cashes in Money in the Bank. I'd take that spot. I'd be Orton, just walk in, take the title, go home, happy days. But I feel like putting myself in an actual like all-time classic match that I couldn't pick, because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to remove that match for us because it's good, you know what I mean? I don't know if there's any bad ones I want to go into. I could go a better good, but then at the same time, I do shit in it, then I'm mainly feeling that bad match. So, I don't know. You know what, man?
I know that's easy night's work, isn't it? You walk out with a briefcase, hit a wee move or two, 1, 2, 3, get the belt up the road. Lost it the next night, but your name's still in that history book. You won it, even just for a night.
Yeah.
I'm at. I always think, see, like when Money in the Bank came round, like, see, if you won that, you must be like, I hope they invite me in to cashing this in, like, at the end of the night, so I don't need to do anything. I can just walk out there, get this belt, go back up the road, because that way you're going to get paid, especially somebody like Orton and stuff like that. They're getting paid a ton a year. It's like, I'm getting paid a ton just to do like 2 minutes work, which will be cool. But obviously, it's about 20 years worth of work to get there. But aye, you know what I'm trying to say. Man, thanks for being on the podcast. Honestly, it was great having you on. Where would you like people to go check you out first, or do you have a match on YouTube or something that you would like somebody to go check out? Where would you say you would like somebody to go see you first?
Really, I've got like the first day kind of back up. It's 24th of July for Target Wrestling. You can look them up. They've got their kind of face promoted. So that's where you can kind of first see me live. Wrestling. On kind of social media, I've got like kind of videos posted on my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You said you've got the links, yeah?
Yeah, I've got the links. They're in the description below. So
all that stuff, like that's where you can see me and me doing my stuff. After lockdown, like that's one of the mistakes I made before lockdown, was not getting enough matches actually filmed. And that's one of my goals, to get a lot more kind of stuff filmed and up there for, you know, people to see who aren't getting to the show. So hopefully you'll see a lot more of him. Yeah.
Definitely, man. I love your character. I think it's cool. I think it's just refreshing to see, because everybody, especially when you look at some wrestling promotions, don't want to burn too many bridges. I always end up getting somebody DMing me and being like, why do you keep saying this about people? But anyway, some promotions, they all kind of look the same or do similar styles. Your style is cool. It's just fun, friendly. I wouldn't feel that I'll bring my kids along and you'll be like gushing our blood and stuff like that. Like, so I'm like, it's cool to see that kind of stuff still happening in wrestling, because it's still got its place. And no, everything has to be deathmatch wrestling or like super serious. We can have fun, and it's cool to see. I'd recommend people go check you out. Go get you on Facebook, because you've got quite a lot of your promos on there and stuff like that, which is fun. I'll share your stuff when you're back doing your shows. Let me know. I'll get it shared. I'll try and come along. What I'll do is I'll end the podcast here, and I'll tell you that after information after it.